Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week ahead. This week, we are beginning with this last quarter moon in Sagittarius. So, right now, the sun has moved into Pisces, Mercury's in Pisces, the moon's in Sag. Also, Juno, the goddess of marriage and commitment, is also moved into Sagittarius. And the moon here is making its last quarter square. So I feel like, you know, in general, just the atmosphere from pretty much the beginning of March in through the end of April is one of accelerated change. And that is marked by both the cycles of the retrogrades that we will be visiting and the eclipse season. So both of those are coming up. And right now, while we're in this last quarter phase, so it's considered, kind of a closing of an evolutionary cycle. I wanted to read you just a little bit about that square, that last quarter square. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing a page. Opposition, disseminating phase. Here we are, last quarter phase. So here Jeffrey Wolf Green says, this phase is a major crisis involving the individual's belief systems in terms of what to believe. The soul must rebel against such belief systems in order to expand its consciousness and embrace universal truths. Thus, this phase correlates to a shedding of skins, in which the soul progressively begins to decondition itself from the impact of consensus opinion. At the square, the soul, having learned all there was to learn about society, culture, and having become socialized in that context, now experiences a process of repolarization of the consciousness. Repolarization essentially is the opposition, right? The opposite, doing, right, the opposite of what we might otherwise do. And what's interesting about this particular lunar phase is that it also corresponds to a square from Mercury to Jupiter. So Mercury is the ruler of Gemini and also the ruler of Virgo. And Mercury's in the sign of Pisces, just past its square to Jupiter in Gemini. And here we have the moon, which tomorrow will be in an opposition to Jupiter and square to Mercury. So there's that whole pulling apart of our thought systems and beliefs and ideas and ideologies. And, I was thinking, oh, okay, one can have a vision of what they want for their life, but lack the action or the commitment in order to make that vision real. One can have a belief system, right? And lack the faith or for example, there are many people who go to church and read the Bible and, show up, but they don't actually have faith in the belief system that they participate in, right? Maybe they don't completely believe what the Bible says, or maybe they don't completely um, feel that they can accept all of the ideas that are proposed, or, maybe they take some things and leave other things, right? But either way, that creates a formidable crisis when those beliefs are tested, or when those structures are tested, or when we need, for example, when we need to rely upon God, but our idea of what or who God is isn't solid. It's or it's set up by other people's belief systems, or it's set up by other people's ideologies. And it was never something that we felt as truth within ourselves. And this can be true of anything that we do in our lives. If you've ever gotten a job working for a company in sales, I've had a lot of sales jobs over the years. And you gotta believe in the product to sell the product, right? If you don't believe in the product, and I've had those moments in my life where I became disillusioned with what they were doing, for particularly when I was working as a financial advisor, I became deeply disillusioned with the investment industry because they would be selling people green, sustainable investments that had Monsanto in it. That's like those are diametrically opposed. Monsanto is not an environmentally conscious company. It's not a green or sustainable company. In fact, it has been known over the years for immense destruction of the earth. And yet, labeled as such and sold as such and propositioned as such, it only becomes not so when we begin to question the ideas and the beliefs that were laid upon those things, right? And so for me, at that time in my life, when I started to really question that, and I couldn't find honest answers, I honestly decided I couldn't do the work that I was doing. So, there are these times and places in our life where we face a sort of critical mass of where our life in general, as it is, hasn't been working for us. And our desires, of course, or the structures of our life aren't suited or aren't suitable to welcome our desires and without some sort of fundamental shift. And that is a part of what I think we're undergoing here in this process, which will be really taking place over the next couple of months. But I always want to give you a heads up, of course, when we're in the lead time to these periods of immense transformation. And this is one of those periods. In the next few months, we're going to have two eclipses. We're going to have several planets stationing retrograde, stationing direct. We're going to have both Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries for the first time. We're going to have Jupiter then squaring the nodal axis. We just are going to have, it's going to be kind of like bing, 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 hitting all those places. And what are the places? The places where we don't have full faith and trust in our reality. What are the places? The places where we're subtly disconnected from the vision that is alive inside of us. And I believe that every person, some people call it your dream or whatever it is, but some people, for some people it's simply the calling of their soul, their life is, you know, and for me too, always a little bit out of alignment with that calling, you know. And as we get further and further out of alignment with that calling, it will feel more and more distressing. We will either feel more and more resistance to what is as we're out of alignment with the deeper calling of our soul, or we will feel more and more dissatisfaction, disillusionment, um, anxiety, unease, right? The anxiety I think of as the restlessness of the soul, because in our true state, we are at peace. In our true calling, we are in our love, we are really powerfully moving forward the authentic creative impulse of our soul. We are aligning ourselves with our will, which is aligned with God's will, and that brings peace. That brings us a sense of trust and surety within ourselves that it's like people call it being in the flow or whatever, feeling like we're on our path, however you want to describe it. When we're living outside of that, it's sort of like a plane. No matter what, a plane is going to go from San Francisco to Atlanta, Georgia. And throughout the course of the flight, there might be, several moments or even maybe several hours where the plane is actually off course navigationally to where it's destined to go. That's not an issue as long as the pilot is maintaining awareness of where the plane is off and bringing it back, right? And yet, as we get through this week, we're going to have a moon in Capricorn squaring Venus at her station degree. She's about to station retrograde. Um, you know, that's a course correction that we have to make within ourselves and our emotional responsibility to ourselves, our emotional authority, really to say, hey, I want to feel differently about my life. Hey, I really care about my path, my growth, and to recognize we can never change others. We can inspire, we can invite. Sometimes we can push, but that I found is pretty ineffective. Just from my own experience, it's one of my greatest forms of suffering. Doesn't mean I don't like to suffer. Sometimes I do, but really in our learning process, which I do believe that this is all a learning journey and a healing journey, we go through those times and periods where we're in great resistance to what's happening in our life until it changes, right? We get until we realize, oh, okay, the plane's really off course. I've got to get back on track. I realized recently as I'm starting to exercise more, being 2.5 months postpartum, and I'm finally feeling like I got to a point of really want to come back into my body, really want to feel my own strength. And as I started to work out, I really started to recognize like, oh, wow, I really need to do this a lot more. And then the more I do it, the more I realize, oh, there are other things I have to change too, But I can still feel I have a greater degree of resistance to changing the other things, like how I eat or, you know, um, unhealthy patterns that are not serving, right? There's still a greater degree of resistance than what I'm already doing. So I've been focusing my energy and my attention on strengthening in the thing that I am already doing that is already going well, right? I have a very strong meditation practice, a very strong prayer practice, right? I've been working on just like increasing the amount of time that I'm spending doing those things, starting to do more exercise, more group fitness, starting to do more at home strength training, slowly making those adjustments really and weaving them in, even if I still want to eat the cookie. I'm definitely having the chocolate babka at, you know, dessert tonight. It's just what is until I, release the desires. And this is a part of the Pluto work. Until we have exhausted those desires, we will not necessarily let them go. Sometimes we're able to exhaust them without fulfilling them, right? Like you can have a desire. I've had this happen before where maybe there's a strong attraction towards somebody, but simply by sharing that with someone, whether it's with the person that you have the attraction towards or towards someone or to someone else, then all of a sudden you start to see clearly, oh, okay, not necessarily a person that I should engage a relationship with, or not necessarily like I'm not going to play out this desire. It's just there, and it's okay that it's there. The desire itself isn't bad or wrong. Sometimes we can do things that have consequences, other whether intended or unintended consequences. But the desire itself, the desire nature, we're often taught, that the desire is wrong. I heard someone say this week, money isn't evil, money is neutral. We can do evil with it or we can do good, right? The Bible isn't evil, right? It's people interpret it in many different ways and it can be misinterpreted. It can be used for harm, right? There are many different things in the world that we think of and with a judgment of good or bad, right, wrong, shameful, whatever, but it's actually the thing itself is neutral. The use of the thing is what it's the same thing of like a chainsaw. Okay, a chainsaw is neutral. Used to cut down a tree could be a completely good thing. Could also be a destructive thing, depending on how you look at it. In the hands of a toddler, totally dangerous. Not okay, right? So it's about our capacity for discernment, right? And understanding, wisdom, right? Use and judgment of the thing as opposed to the thing itself. And removing the shame, the blame, the sense of failure or inadequacy that might come with thoughts of guilt or the thing, right? About the thing, sex as a thing is not necessarily, it's neutral, and there are many different ways to do it. And there are some that have impacts or unintended consequences that are harmful. And there are some ways that are absolutely, truly holy and divine. And so it's a matter of what we choose to perceive and to create. And I think as we're coming towards this Pisces new moon, we have quite a capacity this week towards the actualization of a new understanding within ourselves, a recommitment, a rededication of ourselves to the divine purpose of everything. What is the divine purpose? What is the divine purpose of our lives? What is the ultimate meaning of our lives? What is the divine purpose of our emotions? What is the divine purpose of community? What is the divine purpose of our words? What is the divine purpose of the earth? What is the divine purpose of our home? What is the divine purpose of our relationships? What is the divine purpose of our emotions? Right? And consistently redirecting ourselves back towards that divine purpose will ultimately reveal the deeper purpose of our soul, underlying all divine purpose, underlying all of our actions, and that resolves the crisis of consciousness. That resolves all the belief systems and the ideas, whether we agree with them or not. That resolves all of the emotional conflict and what is unanswered within ourselves, within our souls, within our relationships. All of that, redirecting it towards the divine purpose, is like course correcting that airplane back towards the destination. And that's what we're doing this week, my friends. And of course, then if things leave our life or come into our life around the eclipses, around the retrogrades, we can recognize and welcome them prepared because we can see them as a part of the divine purpose. Oh, this is part of the divine purpose. How is this part of the divine purpose? Might be a question that we need to ask ourselves. I'm going to be doing a special report tomorrow on the retrogrades, just a revisit of the soul archetype of the retrogrades and a revisit to how retrogrades work in evolutionary astrology and a little look at the upcoming retrogrades of Venus. As we are, Mars, we're completing the Mars retrograde cycle. We just completed the Jupiter retrograde, but Mars and Jupiter are both in their shadow degrees, so covering still the degrees that they were covering in their retrograde. Venus and Mercury are also in their shadow, pre-shadow to their retrograde. So I'm going to go into that more in a video, which will be released tomorrow. So look forward to that. I hope that you'll join me. Um, I'm going to have a new moon ceremony on Thursday, the 27th, and I'm going to offer that new moon ceremony to my larger community. So if you want to join me in prayer and practice and realigning ourselves to the divine purpose that we all have here, I will make a live link for you to register for that ceremony. I'll do a transmission on the lunar cycle during that ceremony, and then we will talk about um, the intentions for that month ahead. All right, everyone. I hope that you are doing well. Keep your, hats on for this coming eclipse season. Maybe I'll touch into the eclipse season a little bit in the retrograde special video because they're quite tied in this time around. It's a big cycle of evolutionary strength that we can draw from if we are preparing ourselves for it as well. And I know that you can't prepare for the unexpected, but you can internally be cultivating yourself every day. So I hope that these messages helped you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.